This is Phil McNally with Artist to Artist, and we're a subsidiary of ArtSpeak. But I've got a podcast today, and I've brought in another person to kind of desegregate and work on. And her name is Lisa Zadravec, and she is something a little bit different than we have in the past. And this is what I do. I do different things as far as for different people, as far as my audience and my subscribers. So what I'm doing today is we're going to be talking about colored pencils, which is something I've thought in the past about. I said, I think we've all, even from grade school, I think we've all been touched by colored pencils one way or the other. But Lisa has actually made a career out of them. And we're going to talk more in depth as far as that career. We're going to talk about her paintings and look at some of those and see where they go and how she does it. But it's another kind of art, and that's what I'm here for, and that's what I do. So let's bring Lisa on. Lisa, we appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's definitely our pleasure. So what we want to do is what I normally do with people who come on the podcast is we just talk a little bit about background. Now, I see pastel painters. I mean, there are artists who are out there doing pastels and stuff like that. You are one of the few that I've seen colored pencil. Are you considered more at the top end of that industry as far as that division, or are there so many more others that I just haven't uncovered yet? I mean, how big is this?
How big is it? We can look on cpsa.org and see how many their membership is up to. It has gotten quite big. There are local chapters, not in every state, but usually in the regions. And COVID helped because if you're in a region where there isn't one, a lot of times they do Zoom meetings and whatever. So you have local chapters as well as the national organization, and there are international. Now, yes, there's, like I said about the shows, there's always somebody better.
Right,
I'm a
right.
signature member, so if you have some of the initials behind your name. Now, mine are, you can get CPSA, that's for how many times you're in the international exhibit. There's CPX for how many times you're in they call it Colored Pencil Explore. It's colored pencil with another medium. And in the old days when I was starting and struggling with the opaqueness, I did a lot of colored pencil with gouache. And if you look at those pictures, they're kind of in order that I sent you. They're kind of in order of that, from oil to the gouache work to the 100%.
Well, that's a good idea. Let me
Yeah.
go ahead and get that up because I can go ahead and share my screen and we can just take a look at what you sent and see if what
So
we're
this is
seeing.
an oil painting from back in like probably 1982 or something like that. I don't see a date on it. And that's painted with that layer upon layer, transparent layers.
Uh-huh.
And so that's there, early and also Merge method. And then the next one I think you have is this is that first one I put in at the MAA show and won first place in portraiture.
Well, I could see on this one, my God, the amount of bubbles you got on that
I
thing. I
know,
mean,
and
it's like,
I think what took me a really long time to do was that every time I noticed another color in one bubble, I was like, well, all these bubbles are in a similar environment. Now I've got to get that hot pink down into that bubble over there. Yeah, it did take a while. And I was using some gouache for some of the opaque and white areas. So not on her jeans, not on her skin, but like up in her hair or on a bubble or,
right.
also just to sort of fill in the background with the grass because I was not aware of some of the speeded up methods of covering that. I mean, this thing is huge. It's like 19 by 25 at least, I think.
Okay, that's pretty good
Yeah,
size.
those are my largest ones because they're the full sheet of the paper. So at that time, I didn't have a quicker way than stroke by stroke to get the backgrounds. And now I know some little tricks of the trade using solvents, heat, blenders, blah, 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 that would get that green. The paper, by the way, is the color of her shirt and what's coming through at the bottom. And I loved this color of the paper because it was the color of her shirt. And so I was just going ahead and just putting a little highlight and shadow on her shirt and letting that come through here and there. Now, of course, on the bubbles, once they're really worked up, then you've got to add it back in. So
Okay, so I've got a couple questions on this one. One of them is you are not canvas. This is all paper. Everything
it's
that you do with
paper,
colored paper pencil is paper, correct?
paper. Yeah.
Well, any specific type of paper that you're using or
Not
suggest?
this one. I didn't like this one because this one was very brittle and it was the Fabriano. I was just having a discussion with someone about Stonehenge paper and I'm like, it feels lovely. It feels like you're drawing on velvet. And then those lovely velvety fibers the next day pop up and your picture is 3 shades
Yeah.
lighter. It makes your, one of my friends calls it spongehenge. Sorry very much, but I have decided that whether you like the feel of it or not, that's not the point. Do I want to draw because it feels really good, or do I want the outcome to be what I want it to be? So I exclusively now will only use Canson Meetens paper. Now that's a pastel paper and one side is very rough with texture, but the back side is a little smoother, but very toothy. It'll take as many layers as I want it to. I can paint on it with gouache. I could put ink on it, anything. It's very durable without having to buy the board, which by the way, the Canson Meetens board is completely too textury, but just the regular Canson Meetens paper. Plus it comes in these colors. And what I like about the colors, it's just like when you do chiaroscuro, you've got the dark and the light and you're working into the tinted. It's one layer you don't have to draw because you will be limited how many layers this paper will take. At some point,
Oh,
you've
okay.
crushed the tooth and it just won't really take anymore without just looking horrible. So if you already have one layer of color in the paper, it's sort of like if I had a white paper, then I would want to
Right,
some watercolor and just give it a little tint. Like people
right.
tint their canvas and then they work into it.
Oh, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I come in with the
Yeah.
canvas and it's just we're getting rid of the white immediately, and it's like I
Oh yeah,
just the
that's
whole
that's the
canvas is
first
gone.
layer.
Yeah,
The first layer
that's a first
is
layer on. Let's get rid of
so,
that and
or
let's
at the
start.
very least, just that imprimatur, for portrait artists, they use that olive gray or something
Right,
that you're working into, and then you can bring everything out. Even
correct.
pastel artists, if they're going to do a lot of green grass and forest, they lay down a lot of complementary reds first, so that's working in there behind it. So, I choose a paper based on some predominant color in the picture, even though if you go past this one, you never see the paper anymore. Some of them I have to go back and remember, what did I use for that? This one I used the paper color. I liked the paper color and I said it was the little girl's shirt and
So what you're saying is that you chose this paper based upon the
what I
tint
was going to.
that it already had in it, or that did it come in white
No,
and
no,
you
no. I
tinted out?
chose this. I chose this paper because I'm going to do this girl. She's wearing that shirt. I'm going to have green grass and lots of bubbles. And so this paper will, work with the color scheme. And I had decided to leave some of the paper showing through.
So you belated the point of the a paper product itself, which artists, say I use linen canvas or I use cotton duct or whatever. You don't look at it from that standpoint necessarily, saying I've got to use this manufacturer paper and this type of paper at this weight or whatever.
Yeah.
You actually go into it and say, well, look, here's a paper that works. You're
Well, I did then, but after experimenting, the end result is Canson Me Tints has more colors than all of them. If you want a color, they also have white, they also have black, whatever you want. They've got the colors, but they've got the texture and the weight and all of that that I need. And the other papers are not, I don't have confidence that it's
Okay.
going to come out well if I draw on something just because, oh, it feels like velvet to draw on. Yeah, but then
Yeah.
then the pigment disappears. Or
So
this one
from
was brittle. It was like it was kind of cracking. I can't remember because it was a while back whether it was under the paint or whatever, the use of moisture. But
right.
the paper itself was, if I did one more thing to it, I felt like it was so brittle it was going to crack, and I'd have cracks in my paint in my paper.
So if I'm hearing you right, from a colored pencil artist perspective, I will know what I'm going to do an artwork from. I have my idea, I have it sketched out or whatever, and I've got it in my head. And now I need a paper. So I go get this paper and I'm looking for basically a background that's going to work with it, that it's going to work with what's,
Not
because what
necessarily.
I'm saying is that if you go into it from an artist standpoint, like I said, from an oil painter standpoint, I've got a white canvas. All of my canvases are white, and then I just put whatever I want
Whatever
on it.
color. That's
Right,
why
exactly.
with the Canson Me Tints, you've got all the colors you can think of. I mean,
But that's what you pick from. You pick from a
I picked
color.
from, yeah, I have their swatch book right here, and I can pick which shade of light blue do I want. I see 6 of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that easier than taking your pencil and taking a white paper and then just doing a whole background of green on it? Or I
Okay,
mean,
so different colored pencil artists work differently. And some of them, especially if they are simply copying the photo, even if they photoshopped it into their own idea, that you will see them work from the upper left-hand corner down to the lower right, so their hand never smudges it, and they do inch by inch, and I'm like, I can't work like that.
yeah,
On top of
yeah,
that,
yeah.
to copy a photo, my Epson printer does that, and just like
Yeah.
the German girl said, I already have the photo. What do
Yeah,
I
I
need
already have
that
the
for?
photo. That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
as a painter, as I go along, I am deciding with these background bubbles, is that one on the ground or is that one floating behind her?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't plan that before I started. All I had was a little girl I wanted to draw, and quite frankly, her face and body were from different pictures, and so were the
That's
bubble
what gets me
color.
about
And
that's
there
what gets
was
me about this
nothing,
painting.
none of this. She didn't have bubbles
Right. And
around
that's
her.
what I'm trying to figure out. This painting is quite unique from my perspective because, well, for one thing, from a colored pencil perspective, the white matters. And then how did you come up with all of these bubbles? I could see how you come
I
up with the
like to
girl.
stare at it and say, are the bubbles rising or falling?
Right.
My mother wrote a poem about Mary Cassatt's boating party, and she was like, the guy in the back is in the wrong place, and are they coming or going? Is he rowing or pushing? Like it was the same thing. It's like you can look at it forever and just have a little contemplative moment. But no, like a painter, I would say, okay, this bubble's got to go, and this area has to be all grass. And I'd get out my eraser or my gouache or whatever and get rid of it and start over. Or what if I decided to color in her shirt? I don't have a complete plan. There's a process to creating art that I think if you are simply copying what you've photoshopped together or some reference photo, you're missing the whole fun of letting this happen in front
Very
of.
good. Very
And
good.
I also do a lot of times with children, because the way we take a picture, they're shorter than us, and especially with children, I play with the perspective. I have other ones where I've played with, linear perspective down the road and all of
Hmm.
that with someone because I want to get the whole street and the person's hat all the way down to their skirt, and yeah, one judge said, whoever did this perspective on one of my pieces, he said, just owned it. And you have to own your picture. You have to
Mm.
say, I'm making this. I don't care what was in the photo. The photo's just a reference.
Right.
The person,
Right.
you're trying to create this three-dimensional person, but you're also trying to create this believable scene where I can go in here and say, I'm in the bubble world with the little bubble girl. You know, I'm there and it's happening. Did it really? Are there mistakes? Are there anatomical things that couldn't really happen or whatever? Probably. But I stuck you in this bubble world and you have to believe it while you're there, while you're
That
looking at it. Yeah, you know.
that is great. That is simply amazing because it does reflect a lot of what were you thinking and where were you at and how far along was it, and all these came into play as far as what you're saying, which I have a hard time with because I don't I'm kind of a little bit in that other tribe to where, yeah, in today's world, take a shot and put what you want in it, and then that becomes your reference, and then that actually becomes a copy, and you're from the other world
I'm
of
from
the
the world
tribe
before
of,
Photoshop.
right.
We didn't
You
have
create,
Photoshop.
you're creating this, and it
Right.
shows creation. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's
We
what I'm
had
saying about it.
photos and we used to take that old school overhead projector and we could project something on
Right,
the canvas.
right,
You know, if you wanted to do that, but we didn't have printers in our house where we printed out things or
right.
fixed them and did all this
It's a
stuff.
different world.
It is a
It
different
is a different
world,
world.
but you know, on the one before that I said was back from the old days, you know, the girls weren't there with balloons with the skyline of Venice behind them,
No,
nor did they have any clown makeup on. It was just two little girls. I had a commission to paint these girls, and that commission was different. But while I was hanging out with them, the one girl gave the other one a hug, which I thought was sweet, and there was all this sunlight. And I just did something fun with it, with the balloons in the background and whatever I was doing. So
well done. It was well done. Let's go further on because
yeah,
that
go further on.
this is another one that you've done,
So now
the
this
rabbit.
one is tiny. So if it looks big on your screen, it's like 9 by 9.5 inches or something like that. And it was a moving moment for me personally because it was my daughter and what she was going through and her protector rabbit Nix, who would bite the heck out of you if you got near her, and the slanty landscape where she could just dash off into the woods at any moment and be gone. And you know, when you have teenagers, you go through those moments.
Oh
So
yeah.
so the look in her eye and all of that, it's very powerful. It took me maybe a couple of years to I always wanted to draw it when I took that picture of her because that look in her eye that she had and the whole emotional thing. But it took me a while to get a grip on my emotions to be able to do it. And um yeah, and then I called it looking back, and everybody thinks it's because they're looking back at us, but it's not. It's me looking back at that time. Because you know, they
Interesting.
grow up to be adults and then they're like your best friend and everything's fine.
I
But
wonder how that works. You know, it just kind of strange at times of
and
all.
then this is her best friend, but this girl reminds me there's a side of her that I can relate to, that you know, this whole cold stark landscape. And these were actually, I wanted to put her in dragon wings, but there's no such thing as a reference for decent dragon wings that would work like dragon wings would work and look beautiful. So
Right.
that's why they kind of bend. But the most
Hmm.
beautiful wings are the moth wings, not the butterfly wings, even though everybody calls it butterfly girl. It's little wing, like the Jimi Hendrix song is what I call it. And everything on her that she is wearing is creative. The colorful wings, the rings and everything were handmade, like the knit and the crocheted things that she's got on.
Right.
And if you're in that big bad cold world and all you've got is your creativity, you know, the purpley cold and the intensity of her, I just, you know, somebody offered me, I still have this picture, by the way. Somebody offered,
How big is this? How big is
it's
this?
19 by 21, I
Ooh, okay, that's a good size.
20 by 21.
That's
It's
a good
just,
size.
I was playing with this, not a square, but not a square, just a little off a square.
Uh-huh.
So there is a little length to it, which less is a little less tenths than being an actual square, which would look wide. I
Mm.
do that with my squares sometimes. So just a thing, you know, if you went to art school, don't make squares. Now squares are cool, but squares are tense. Just like
Yes.
something
Yeah.
dead center, and I was just noticing. So I've got her eyeball almost dead center, but not dead center.
Well, in the last two, I can see where your portrait skills come through. I'd always look at
Yeah, I
portraiture,
mean,
portrait artists.
even if you have a photo of somebody that's highly, overexposed like this one or whatever, if you don't know how to form a mouth, and I was looking at some poor soul's portraiture progression the other day on Facebook, and I thought, here's what happens when you simply copy the photo. You flattened it. When you simply pick colors at random because they match your photo reference, you're wrong because you don't know your Zorn color wheel, your Zorn,
Mm,
which by the way, I was thinking this was Anders Zorn, 19th century, blah, blah, blah. It's actually called the Apelles uh color wheel, and it's from the 6th century BC. Some Apelles, I want to say Koh, I can't remember, some old ancient Greek artist came up with this color wheel. It's been used forever through all Renaissance and everything else. It is the portraiture color wheel. It is made with 3 colors. Now I can go beyond that. If the butterfly girl, she has right down her the Terminator line of the shadow. I put in neon pink and yellow. You can play with it. You can put in highlights. You can throw it out the window and make her shoulders purple. But you've got to understand what's under there, to say, I've got a basis for what I'm doing. I've got some kind of understanding of what skin is made of. So here we are, 28 translucent layers. I'm going to be a cosmetologist. And underneath you've got your red blood and your blue blood,
right.
flowing through your arteries and veins and everything. And you've also got the warmth of whether it's in your
Mm,
skin tone, but maybe the light. So you've got your red, blue, yellow, you've got a color wheel going there, and you have those elements. But what exactly they are, if you pick up cerulean blue when you need ultramarine blue
hmm.
or a phthalo or whatever,
Right.
you make a completely different sky.
Hmm.
And if I have the wrong purple that's made of the wrong blue or the wrong yellow and peach and whatever, and it's too canary lemon yellow and it's too greenish, I can't put that in my hair. That's not what blonde hair is.
Right.
I've got to go with this sort of natural tone of colors. So there's
As far
think
as
what
what
I'm
the
bringing to colored pencil that I don't fault anybody else who's there are people who copy photos like I probably couldn't, because by the way, I have an essential tremor and it's like I get a shaky hand from time to time. They do beautiful skilled work and whatever. But what I'm bringing to a colored pencil world that a lot of the more self-taught or modern day artists, the way they learn what we talked about before, picking up on YouTube and all that, is I have got the academic knowledge that I'm going, okay, I can look at this pencil and these 2 blues and tell you which one was made with the ultramarine and which one was made with the phthalo,
right.
you know,
Right.
because
Right.
and I know what that means. I mean, there are people,
Hmm.
I've taken some of my higher level color pencil students that I've mentored and send them off to oil painting class so they'd start to get it a little bit more.
Well,
Talking about.
it comes to that. I mean, if you are trying to progress as an artist and you say, okay, I've been hobbying it for so long, and it's like, okay, I want to get further on. What is it that I need to learn better in order to be better? And color is going to be one thing that's going to be part of it. Now you're into the portraiture side, and I will tell you this, that let me get to this one, because this right here is one of the reasons why I felt that the previous one with the butterfly girl and this one, why you kind of stand out to me as far as when I start looking at people who do portraits. You mentioned you're in cosmetology and you got the skins, the reds, the blues, and everything else underneath the skin. I look at another thing. I look at the first thing I usually look at and say, are you a portrait artist or not? Of course, proportion between those two contexts are gonna be one thing anyway. You got to have the right proportion, but the eyes, the eyes. If the
I
eyes are not right on anything, I could care less if you have great tone on your face or great proportion everywhere. If those eyes are not right, you've just lost the whole painting to me.
Yeah, I look at my next picture that
This
I'm
one,
working on
mm.
and I go, "Oh my gosh, this is so much better than the last one."
Well, we all
Go
say
back
that.
and
All artists, all artists are going to say
but
that.
the
They're going
other
to say that.
thing that I think this one is pointing towards where I'm going from maybe from the butterfly wing girl on, well, maybe all the ones I sent you, is that there's something in my work that is still that frustrated writer. There's a story. I'm not telling you the story. This is just the cover of the book. Let somebody else write. The picture's worth 1,000 words. You write the 1,000 pages, but there's a story, and I may hint at it with the title. A lot of times they're lyrics of the song. If you remember the Peter, Paul, and Mary, If I Had Wings,
Oh
you can
yeah.
take every lyric. When I got done with this picture, I sent this little girl. I was like, I'm finished, and here's the lyrics to the song I was singing in my head while I drew you.
There you go. There
That
you go.
song was so her, and it was just a young person saying, if you don't get me, then I don't care, I'll fly away, like it's it was perfect. and
Sweet, sweet.
and just like the little wing there's a quote in there that says, you can take everything from me, but it doesn't matter, you can take everything from me, but you can't take this, you can't take what somebody is.
Right,
And that's
right.
the little wing. So sometimes I may hint at it in song or whatever, but they all have a story, and you spend so much time. This is 12 by 12 inches. It's not very
Mm-hmm.
big.
Mm-hmm.
But you spend time with this person looking in their eyes, which is where I always start, by the way. I can't do the mask thing where I did the skin and I added the eyes. I put the eyes in, and then things build up in layers, just like painting, and things get changed and erased and moved, and just like painting. And
Lisa, I do appreciate you coming on board. This has been quite the
thank
experience because we're just
you.
kind of getting colored pencil look
Great
and
conversation. Thank you. My
no,
favorite subject. I can talk all day.
yeah. Well, I when it comes to art, I can talk to these artists all day too, and unfortunately, I don't always have that time. But Lisa, I'm glad that you came on. We thank you very much, and we'll be putting these podcasts out there sometime. I think this will be hitting fairly soon, probably a March timeframe, and I'll let everybody know. But this is Phil McNally, and I'm with Artist to Artist. We're talking to Lisa Zadravec, and we appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Stay in touch. Thank you very much.